Well, good morning, everyone. We are back for an NFL fantasy matchup. As usual, I have Jed here, but Jed, we're missing Jimmy because with our early start time at 8 a.m. Central, somebody forgot to wake up.
I like how you're calling out your brother. That's good, but good morning.
But at the same time, he says he'll be coming on in about 20 minutes. So, I mean, in 10 minutes, so we'll get used to it. But you and I are starting.
Hey, this is back like when we started. This is the way it was, the original
Yes.
gang.
I will say, Jed, it is hard. I mean, and at the same time, trying to navigate, making sure that you're speaking, Jimmy's speaking, moving along, watching the clock. Sometimes it's hard because you're trying to learn how to communicate with all three, and then you're trying to get in the rhythm with all of us.
Well, and doing it virtually makes it even different because, like, if we were in a room together, you could kind of feel a little bit of that pacing. So yeah, it is tricky, but that's why I've actually enjoyed doing this too. It's a good just learning of kind of how you need to communicate in a digital world.
Oh, yeah, because if you're not careful, you're speaking all over each other. If we were in a room, I point to you and I say, okay, after this, I'm going to go over to you. Over here now, Jimmy chimes in, but you have a thought, and then I'm looking at the clock. Oh, we're running out of time, so you got to move it along.
Yeah, you're doing fine. It's been fun.
Yeah. Hey, before we start with all of this stuff, wow, they're laying it hard on John Gruden. Whoever released all those emails, man, now people think it's the NFL who released all those emails to take pressure off them. Wow, they are not very good emails coming out of the Washington football team.
Oh no, it's and actually I think now the big question is, are they going to release all, 650,000 emails? If they release all of that, boy, there's going to be a lot more heads rolling. So it will be interesting. And the other thing to remember, so the NFL could control it in this situation. There's a lawsuit against the St. Louis Cardinals, I think, for the stadium. There's a public lawsuit on that.
Rams.
It's also the Rams. It's included in that. So there's more documentation there that if that goes through, NFL can't stop it, and then it's going to be a huge thing.
Yeah, and at the same time, ironically, no emails have been released on Colin Kaepernick. Imagine when those emails start coming out.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely this cannot be just, if anyone thinks this is just one coach who has these kind, and the issue is just putting it in emails, but that behind closed doors, it's a lot worse. You just think of the NBA back when Sterling, all that stuff came out with the owner of the Clippers. It's the same thing. These owners at that level, they think they can say whatever they want.
Yeah. Hey, now with that said, your thoughts? Did you read the Adam Schefter story? How he got called out too? His email was released. What do you like? For instance, I actually don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure what you think, Jed. Is as an insider, you sometimes have to develop. You don't want to blindside one of your key sources. So just making sure, hey, I'm releasing that. Do you have any problems with it? I actually didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think it was a courtesy thing. I mean, so as a Northwestern Medill grad, I do have to say, as far as journalistic standards,
wait. You're a Northwestern Medill grad?
Yeah, I went there for grad school.
I did not know this.
Yeah, the integrated marketing communications program. So, wow. But yeah, so I will say he went one step further, because I think it was a courtesy maybe to say, hey, here's a draft. Take a look at this, let me know what you thought. But I think he needed to be more clear in his communications. The way he made it sound, and he came back and said, oh, they didn't have editorial control, they couldn't have changed anything, but it sure sounded like it, because he said something to the effect of, let me know if there's anything you want me to change. That to me is a problem, because then you aren't really being totally objective. You're letting them write the material. So I did think it went a step far, but who else doesn't do that? I think a lot of people do that. So,
well, especially when they called him Mr. Editor. So Adam Schefter referred to him as Mr. Editor. It just doesn't sound good. But at the same time, that's how you get all these breaking news.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying. I think it's a little different, right? Like when you come to nowadays with the breaking, late breaking news, it's a different ball game. Journalism as a whole is a different ball game now, because you have to play for clicks. The speed and the timing, it's just a whole different thing.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question. With all the waiver wire pickups, was there one player on this week's waiver that you really wanted to get?
I was able to get Michael Pittman in one league. I was surprised that he was available. I know a lot of people went after Booker.
Yeah.
I wasn't as big. Yeah, actually, no, there wasn't one that really stood out to me. Was there someone that you were thinking?
There was Daryl Williams. There's been a lot of talk about Daryl Williams, Devontae Booker. Daryl Williams could potentially be a 3-down back. Look, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not been very, very good. Daryl Williams is a 3-down back, and usually near the goal line, they will give it to Daryl Williams. So I would not be surprised if he does really well that he might seize this away from Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, the one that's a good call, especially with the Chiefs. I mean, it's nice having all those points. Although you guys know that I always like to stay away from the Chiefs' back, so I always feel like that's tricky. The other one I will mention is and I'm forgetting his name, the Chicago Bears running back, the third back.
Yep, Herbert.
Yeah, Herbert. Herbert.
Herbert.
I picked him up, and I'm actually starting him in one league, just kind of as in the flex position. I do feel like he could surprise people. So that was one I took a chance on.
Yeah. Hey, I took a chance last week on Darnell Mooney. He did nothing for me.
Yeah, but you hit it with that was a great pickup with Gaskins. You had Gaskins. That's what beat me when we were playing each other last week, and I think that's the guy that put you over the top.
Oh, but at the same time, it's not like I was very wise in picking up Gaskin. He was probably the only one left. Now, at the same time, I've been trying to pick up Marlon Mack along the way because, Marlon Mack, there's rumors that he's probably could be traded to the Chiefs or other places. So I've been trying to look at him.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you have to pay, if you're really paying attention, if you're getting desperate, you got to pay attention to that trade chatter or pickup. For example, Anthony Miller out with Pittsburgh. I think that's an interesting one. But yeah, Marlon Mack, if he got more time, more carries, we've definitely seen him produce. So it could be good.
Hey, look, on a side note, I know a lot of times I'm going to bring Jimmy in a few minutes. Alexander Madison, all right? If I was the Minnesota Vikings, I'd be trading him for a second-round pick.
Well, but he showed his value in that, basically Dalvin Cook goes down, that offense doesn't stop at all. It just keeps going because he's just as good.
Yep. Well, hey, I'm walking Jimmy over as he's coming back in.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
Yeah. Let's go through a couple of news and notes that I have. It goes back with Saquon Barkley suffers an ankle injury in the first half. And from that point on, reports that he has a low ankle sprain and he should be characterized week to week. But with his previous injury with the ACL, they are going to be very, very hesitant. But Booker, you're not crazy about him, Jed. Why is that?
Well, again, it's the whole Giants offense. I just feel like really the only player is Daniel Jones that you feel like he can, with his legs, he can pick up some yardage. But the Giants as a whole, I'm still not sold.
Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of times, especially with Daniel Jones possibly being out, who do you have as a backup? Our old friend Mike Glennon. And we all know how well Mike Glennon does as well, too.
And they're playing the Rams, so.
Yeah, my only pushback to that, Jed, is last year, if you noticed, when Wayne Gallman came in, the line for the New York Giants was actually very, very good. And he did average double-digit fantasy points in each of the games. And then this past week with Mike Glennon, Kadarius Toney did really well from a fantasy perspective. So I do think that if Glennon is in, I'm going to play Toney.
Is Toney still playing, though? Because didn't he have an injury?
Yeah, I think he's still. So this past week, all three receivers, Slayton, Shepard, as well as Toney, they are all limited, but they were still practicing. It was just Jones, Barkley, and Galladay who was not practicing.
That's a good tip too. If you have an injury and you see that they are not playing on practicing on Wednesday, don't get too alarmed. It's Thursday. Thursday is the key practice. If they practice on Thursday, you can feel pretty good that they'll probably play on Sunday.
Yep. Got it. Hey, Jim, JJ Smith Schuster is out. He tore his shoulder and is expected to miss the rest of the season with the injury. Look, he didn't do very well anyways, but man, it does look at what happened with Chase Claypool. It really unleashes Chase Claypool.
There's been a couple of leagues where I was like, I've been trying to go after Chase Claypool because I actually do think that Chase Claypool will be a good fantasy in the second half of the season, and he's actually somebody I'm really trying to target right now. I think there's a couple of players that we need to start watching out for that's okay. It's been okay this first half, but they're going to go off in the second half.
Yeah, this is the time to do that. That's exactly right. Yeah, this is the time to start making trades. We're going into week 6. I was just telling Tommy before we started that I traded Patrick Mahomes for Alvin Kamara in one league. So you have to start. Wow. Yeah, you have to start making moves now because you can see the trends and again aim for the second half.
So maybe we should one day talk about people we should all try to trade for in the second half.
Well, speaking of that, let me ask you a quick question. I got a message from someone. They said, would you be interested in Travis Kelce? They would trade me Travis Kelce for Austin Eckler.
Ooh. Generally, I like running backs more than tight ends. I think they're more valuable because there's less of them, but it just depends on the makeup of your team. The question is, who slots in for Eckler for you after you don't have him, and who does Kelce replace for you on the tight end slot? If you have no one, like if you're starting, someone like Hunter Henry or something at the tight end, then that's a big jump. But then what are you dropping down from Austin Eckler?
Yeah.
Oh, just so you know, I have James Robinson sliding in, and then I have Cameron Brate as my tight end.
So see that to me is the exact kind of move that you should think about, even though it maybe it's not perfectly matched up as far as even trade, but in terms of your makeup, it works out perfect. So that makes sense to me.
Because I actually think there's a number of like backup running backs out there who I think you can get for pretty good value to slot in as one of your bench players. But you can't replace a Kelce. Kelce is so valuable from a fantasy perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tommy's accepting the trade as we speak.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I look at my trade is after James Robinson, here are my other running backs I have Pollard sitting there, Damian Williams sitting there, Devontae Booker, and Marlon Mack. So those would be my flex players as well, too. I have a Michael Pittman in my flex.
Yeah, that's a good lineup. I think you should do it.
And sitting on my IR, Michael Thomas.
See, okay, I just don't know if he'll come back in a timely manner, but we could talk about that later. So.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Jim, the player and actually before I want to go back to Jimmy again because I saw him pick him up. The guy that I actually have now wished I had gone for in terms of waiver wire, Daryl Williams. Talk a little bit about Daryl Williams. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably going to be out for a minimum of 3 games. But, hey, look, he hasn't been doing really well. Whoever comes and does well, they may end up stealing the starting job. Why'd you pick up Daryl Williams?
Well, okay, so I was struggling. So just so everyone knows, waiver wires start coming out at 12 o'clock on Wednesday morning. So I get up at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday morning so I can be the first one. Seriously, for 2 hours, it is rough, because I'm sitting in there waiting for all of these waiver wires to clear. So I was struggling between Devontae Booker. I was struggling with Daryl Williams, Marlon Mack, and Kadarius Toney. And so I was trying to figure out who to go after. My first one was Devontae Booker, because I felt like Saquon was going to go out for a while. And then the next one was going to be Daryl Williams. I chose him over Marlon Mack because you're not really sure where Mack is going to go. And I actually think that Daryl Williams, when he filled in for the offense for Helaire, he actually did pretty good last year, in some of the spot times that he played. So that's why I chose him. And I felt like they're going to need some sort of spark for that offense. And I think Daryl Williams might be it for them.
Yep, got it. Hey, also, Jed, let me ask you, Christian McCaffrey, he is hopeful that running back Christian McCaffrey can suit up against the Vikings this coming Saturday. Is he someone that you're looking to trade for, or are you looking to trade once he comes up? Because this happened last year. He comes back, he gets injured again. What are your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, I personally would trade for him if someone is getting frustrated. I heard that he's 50-50 for this week. In fact, my oldest son was saying I think he was going to try to trade Stephon Diggs, which to me is interesting, for McCaffrey. It's interesting that even could be possible. But I personally would I think McCaffrey will be fine once he gets back. You just have to be patient. And he's such a big production. You're kind of swinging for the fences if you try to do that. So I don't think that's a bad move.
All right, one more, Jed. Julio Jones returns to practice after missing weeks 4 and 5. If he does it, is he in your starting lineup? Probably not. Wide receiver, flex position.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if he's starting, I would take a chance on him if it's for your flex position for sure. If you're starting Julio Jones in your flex position, that means you got two wide receivers ahead of him. You're doing pretty good. Julio Jones could produce big numbers, and and they're is AJ Brown playing too?
I think he is.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's an interesting team for the second half, the Titans. So yeah, I like that. I mean, I like Julio, and he, should still have fresh legs, so it should be good.
Tom, I actually think Julio's somebody that I will do pretty well the second half. I'm hoping that the rest for the first half will give him some good time to play for the second half.
Yeah. Jim, speaking of old players, T.Y. Hilton is now returning to practice. Are you even looking at him, especially in a 12-team league? You're definitely not looking at him in a 10 league. How about 12-team league?
I don't know. I just think there's so many good, decent wide receivers out there that I can do somebody better than a T.Y. Hilton. Now, I do think that if you have Michael Pittman, you're going to have to be a little bit weary of him, only because he's going to start taking some plays away from him, though.
All right, a couple of things. Justin Fields, remember he had hyperextended knee. He should be good to go. Taysom Hill has a concussion, did not practice. Trey Lance, they have a bye week, sprained left knee. There's a good chance if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, he'll come back as well too. So other than that, Jed, before we go and preview some of the games, what games are you looking at for your weekly picks?
Oh yeah, there's interesting. This week there's a lot of good games coming up. There's some big kind of blowout big games. We have a couple big spreads. So the Colts are 10-point favorites over the Texans, and the Rams are 10-point favorites over the Giants. And so you guys know I like to pick kind of an underdog pick every week, and it was a little bit tricky this week, but I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5.5-point favorites over the Seahawks because Russell Wilson is out. But I think Geno Smith is going to do better than people think, and I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are as good as people think. And so that's my upset pick is the Seahawks over the Steelers at Heinz Field. You guys know for some reason this year I've really been down on the Steelers, and actually the other team is the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens are 2.5-point favorites over the Chargers, which I still think is a little insane, even though that's in Baltimore. I'm taking the Chargers all the way there. But anyway, the bigger pick is Seattle over the Steelers.
Yeah. My only concern with that one, Jed, is Seattle is definitely missing Russell Wilson. There's a good chance Chris Carson is not playing, and there might be a slight chance, 50-50 chance, that your guy, oh man, it just slipped my mind.
Metcalf.
Yes, DK Metcalf might not be playing it as well too.
No, so Carson practiced on Thursday, so he should be playing. DK Metcalf, yeah, we have to watch that closely. But I actually think this could be really good for DK Metcalf. If you saw when Geno came in, he really kind of focused in on DK Metcalf, so there could be points there. But I don't know. I have a feeling with Geno Smith, he spent all that time preparing. It's been 9 years in the league. This is what he's been waiting for, and I just think he's going to do well. See.
Jed, do you see those 4 little fingers behind Jimmy?
No, I didn't.
Tom, it's Reagan trying to wave at you. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, it's Jimmy's daughter, Reagan, my niece's birthday today. She's turning 7 years old today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Reagan. You want to say hi? No, she's shy. So she's behind me waving.
Hey, Jed, going to back to your pick, Gerald Everett, he still might be out for COVID. Will Dissly, is he somebody if you're desperate, like for me, I have Cameron Brate, I have Evan Ingram, I'm desperate. Is Will Dissly someone you're looking at?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, that's interesting. You really are desperate there. I still feel like there's some others I would think about. But no, yeah, he's not on my radar.
Tom, did you try to go after the Cleveland tight end?
Njoku?
Yeah, somebody picked him up.
Oh man.
Yeah. Tight ends are hard. Tight ends are hard.
That got picked up across the board, and he was on waivers for me, and so he got picked up as well too. Hey, let me ask you a quick question, Jim. I'm going to go over to you. 3 rookies to watch for the second half. If you had a chance between Romandre Stevenson, Damian Harris lost another fumble and also hurt his chest. Stevenson had 9 carries for 23 yards, but also a touchdown run that was called back. Speed, fast as heck. Michael Carter, 52 yards, 13 touches, and 1 rushing touchdown against the Falcons in London last week. More and more, he's becoming the primary back. Or Khalil Herbert. Jed and I were just talking about that. Herbert outcarried Williams 18-16 and rushed for 75 yards. If there was one of these three, who are you looking at?
You know, funny enough, out of the three, I would go after Herbert. I think it would be Herbert, then Carter, and then who's the first one that you said?
Romandre Stevenson.
Yeah, I would go after Herbert. Herbert, he's a decent player. I actually started looking at him a couple of weeks ago when Williams was a little nicked up, and they were saying that he might play a little bit. I was surprised how much of the plays that he was a part of. So I actually have high hopes for Herbert.
Yeah, and I would say this is a situation where you have to look at both the player and the system that they're in. So I think Romandre Stevenson is clearly the most talented of those three. But the problem is in New England, you just never know what the rushing game is going to give you. And so it's too volatile. Whereas with the Bears, I feel like you're right. If he's the go-to guy, he could get a lot of carries. And so I would put Romandre Stevenson as second just for the potential upside, because if he does start carrying the rock, he's going to produce better than both those guys. I
sense that you do not like the Jets team here, Jed.
I have Carter sitting on one of my teams, but it's really a week to week. It's dependent on who they're playing. If they're playing a weaker team, then I'll even mention this. I dropped Corey Davis in one league. I think it might be in our league, guys. So you guys can go out and pick him up, because there's more like a bye week fill-in. You got to pick out like what defense he's playing to start him. He's not an every week starter.
Yeah. So, going back to the first week when we started talking about this, so that's been my strategy this year. I loaded up really strong on receivers, and I've been going after all of these second-tier running backs, the A.J. Dillons of the world, the Javonte Williams of the world, the Michael Carters, Khalil Herberts. Thus far, it's worked for me decently, but there's been some struggle, partly just because you're just waiting for them to become the starters.
Hey, just so you know, as we preview some of the teams here, the teams on bye, the Jets 1-4 is on bye, Atlanta Falcons on bye, 49ers on bye, Saints are on bye. Next week, there will be a huge list in week 7 of teams that are on bye. But going back to this tonight's actually game, Buccaneers 4-1 against the Eagles 2-3. Jed, Jimmy, I'll go over to you as well too. Tom Brady, not a problem. Curtis Godwin, Antonio Brown, who do you like better in this particular matchup?
I actually like Godwin. Not Godwin. I like Antonio Brown. I actually think that if in terms of like the fantasy points, Tom Brady is number 1 in terms of quarterback, and actually, funny enough, Jalen Hurts is number 6. But Jalen Hurts has actually been trying to throw this ball downfield. I can see them trying to outpace the Bucs. And I can see Brady just chucking it down to Brown and just testing on defense for the Eagles. So I actually will go for Brown over Godwin.
Yeah, I agree with that. Godwin has been a disappointment. I think Godwin, Calvin Ridley, and then Stephon Diggs, those have been the 3 biggest disappointments at wide receiver, and maybe even DeAndre Hopkins a little bit.
Well, and Mike Evans is pretty much non-existent these days in Tampa.
Yeah, so I definitely think Brown, he just has that rapport with Brady. Brady looks for him in key situations. And yeah, I've got him on as a permanent flex player on one of my teams.
Interesting. Jed, Miles Sanders, they're going against the Tampa Bay defense. We already don't like Miles Sanders. Are you even starting him in flex, especially it's against Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
If you have to, as Jimmy said, I think they're going to score points. I think, Philadelphia is a better team than people are giving them credit for. We've been talking about this, that, I think if they start putting things together, they have the pieces there. So I think if you stick him in a flex, it's not necessarily a bad play. You're hoping for that, something close to the goal line, maybe a screen pass or something, but he's definitely not a for sure every week starter.
Actually, one more thing. If you have Miles Sanders and suddenly you had Daryl Williams or Devontae Booker or all those guys. Would you start them ahead
No,
of?
I'm still starting Sanders. I mean, he's still number one. He still has the talent, and sometimes against these tough, these tough games is when the star players play their best. And so, maybe he comes out and has a big game. It is a Thursday night game too. Again, just like I talked about with Monday night games, the players know they're the only game in town, and usually that's they try to show up for those games.
Yeah, Tom. The other thing, Levante David is out this week for the Bucks, and so I think that gives them a little bit of a hole for him to run down. But I also think that Miles Sanders is tied to Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts is being rushed, and if he's not given opportunity to throw, Sanders will not do well because they are so tied together in terms of how they do from a fantasy perspective.
Got it. Hey, another matchup that I'm looking at, Jim, Chiefs against Washington. That's the 12 o'clock game on Sunday. The Chiefs, look, they've been really good. Have they been really superb? No, but they've been very, very good. Going against the Washington football team, they're both 2-3. Thoughts on that game?
Well, if you've noticed, one of the things I've started noticing in these games is the offense of the opposing team to the Chiefs have been trying to keep the ball a lot longer because they realize if we can keep the ball a lot longer, Patrick Mahomes and the offense isn't going to get onto the field, and that's the way to limit the Chiefs because the Chiefs' defense is so bad. So I think Antonio Gibson, they're just going to feed the ball to Antonio Gibson. I do think they're going to use McKissick quite a bit. And so I think my guess is that's going to be their strategy. So if I were playing two players, I would seriously consider McKissick as well as Gibson because they're going to be running the ball.
And here are the numbers to prove it. The Chiefs have allowed them 9 rushing touchdowns this year, tied for the most in the league. Washington also has allowed 14 passing touchdowns, the second most in the league. So we're going to see Patrick Mahomes air it out, and we're going to probably see Washington run the ball a lot during this game.
Yeah.
One thing to watch for Kansas City, in the last game, they talked about how the defensive plan was to limit the long bombs, to really take Tyreek Hill's long bombs away. And they talked about how it really seemed to bother Patrick Mahomes, that he didn't like taking the short 5-10 yard passes. He wanted to throw it deep, and that's why he had all the interceptions. You should watch that because if that's true, it's going to devalue Tyreek Hill. And somebody like a Mecole Hardman, someone who's playing the slot position, could actually pick up a lot. So Travis Kelce should get more play. And you might see a little bit more of those short passing throws if they essentially adjust to that move.
Actually, a really good point. I heard that on the coverage the other day as well too, because they were saying that literally they're just double teaming Tyreek Hill right now, and they're just taking him out, right? And so I agree with you. I'm waiting for them to change their strategy a little bit, whether it's Mecole Hardman, whether it's Daryl Williams, whether it's one of those guys. They're going to have to go forward and change their strategy a little bit.
Jed, Packers, Bears, 4-1 Packers against the Bears, 3-2. We talked about, hey, look, Aaron Jones will do Aaron Jones stuff. Devontae, even though the Bears have allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points to running backs this year, but they've also done a decent job against Davante Adams. But with that said, it's always Davante Adams. The person that I want to talk about to you is Darnell Mooney and the running backs. Talk to me about those.
Yeah, this is an interesting game for the Bears. I mean, Davante Adams coming off of that 200-yard game. That was insane. But yeah, I think the Packers still, the defense is still suspect, and I still think Justin Fields, we haven't really seen, his signature game yet. And so, of all the games to put it up for, this is it, man. If you're playing on the Bears and you can't get up for the Packers game, something is wrong. So I wouldn't be surprised if Fields put together a good game, which should open the door for Herbert and a Mooney. We know how much Fields likes Mooney. Definitely, seems to focus in on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if both those players have a pretty decent game. I'd be willing to play them this weekend. The
Bears did say they're going to try to open up the playbook a little bit for Fields, but they always remind me of what they did to Trubisky. Every week they said they keep saying they're going to open up the playbook a little bit for him, and look what happens to him.
Did you guys see the article that showed they had an interview with Aaron Rodgers, and they said, do you know how many can you name the Bears quarterbacks in the time that you've been the quarterback for the Packers? And it was 21 quarterbacks, and he could only name like 4 of them.
Yeah. Hey Tom, I do have a fantasy question. I need to decide, do I play Aaron Rodgers against the Bears or Justin Herbert?
Oh man, Herbert's so hot.
Which actually leads us to the next one: Chargers against the Ravens, both 4-1. Look, I think, I'm not sure what you guys think. Justin Herbert's Mike Williams is on fire. Austin Eckler is doing so well. Baltimore has not been doing well. Look, as good as a defense they are, they haven't been exactly the best. I actually would start Justin Herbert.
I agree. Herbert has been on fire. And I think Herbert is the guy that I go for. I expect maybe a shootout there with Baltimore.
You don't think Lamar?
Just to let you know, Jim, the Ravens have allowed the 5th most passing yards in 2021.
I should do that. Yeah. You don't think Lamar's a good fantasy player this year?
Oh no, I think he's great. I would say he's maybe the 5th MVP candidate. Like when you look at it, to me, you've got
Herbert.
Herbert is one. I think Josh Allen is number 1.
Yeah.
Herbert. I think Kyler Murray is up there. But then Lamar Jackson is right there.
Yeah. And Derrick Henry, they said, is number 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, here's another stat from our intern, Justin Wong. All right. The Chargers have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends in 2021. That means Mark Andrews is going to do well again.
Dude, Andrews has been turning it on, man. I was looking at that. I regret. You guys know I dropped Mark Andrews in our keeper league. I did not keep him. I regret that. He has been a top 3 tight end this year. I should have kept him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But who would have known? Because he was last year, and even the beginning of this year, he was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, you had to be patient.
Jim, Vikings 2-3 versus Panthers 3-2. Alexander Madison. I mean, it looks like Dalvin Cook is coming back. And Sam Darnold has been doing okay. DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. I mean, this is going to be a good game.
Yeah. I heard some of you guys talking right before I got on. I still am going to hold on to Alexander Madison. I'm not completely trusting of Dalvin Cook that he's not going to be out again. Justin Jefferson has been great for me from a fantasy perspective. I also have Adam Thielen in a couple of leagues. He has not been doing well at all. So they've been feeding that ball to Justin Jefferson and then also dumping it off to the running backs. So those are for sure the 2 players that I want to play. I think the other person to pay attention to is Kirk Cousins. Like Tommy said, next week they're going to go into – a lot of teams are starting to go into buys. Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that I actually think that is being overlooked just because he's scoring in the 20s every week in fantasy, and he's doing pretty good. I actually thought Sam Darnold would be better from Carolina, but he dropped off last week. Kirk Cousins has been pretty consistent this year.
Yeah, I definitely would not recommend dropping Madison for anyone who's got him. He's going to have a role, even if Dalvin Cook plays. And actually, I have both of them in one league, and so it's going to be a tough decision. Because if you saw a couple weeks ago, what they did was Dalvin Cook played a little bit, but Madison was still the feature back. And so you have to make a tough decision. But I definitely wouldn't drop him. I think he's something you got to hold.
Yeah. I hope McCaffrey play this, though.
I will look at 2 more games before we wrap up. Jed, Raiders 3-2 against the Broncos 3-2. New head coach, new change. Will it do well with David Carr? We don't know. The one that I want to look at is the Broncos. Cortland Sutton has been decent. Teddy Bridgewater. Look, it's not Drew Lock. It's Teddy Bridgewater. He does a decent job. But more so, Jerry Jeudy is about to come off of IR. Are you trying to get a hold of Jerry Jeudy as he comes on, or do you still like Tim Patrick better?
Yeah, actually, don't you have Jerry Jeudy on IR, don't you? Because I was looking at your team the other day.
Yep, I do. I'm waiting on him. He's a guy that I think is worth the wait. I want to see him produce for one game, but I fully expect him to be better than Tim Patrick for sure. I think he can challenge Cortland Sutton. Before he went down with injury, he was outproducing Cortland Sutton. And then he went down with injury and Sutton took it on. So I expect big things from Judy. And so I'm definitely watching that. This is a tough game, though. I do think Denver will win. There's just too much going on with the Raiders right now, but you never know. The locker room could rally because it's a good team. They were 3-0 before they lost a couple games.
Jim, Melvin Gordon is running back 21 currently, but in the last 2 weeks, he has not even been in the top 35. People have been dropping him. Are you even playing Melvin Gordon? Not even just a running back anymore, a flex player.
No, I mean, we talked about players that we want to trade for. For me, Javonte Williams is one of those players that I am going hard after. Unfortunately, no one's willing to give him up for me. I mean, I've been pitching like I have not pitched out my really good receiver. So I've been pitching out like a Cortland Sutton for Javonte Williams, but people have not bitten on that one. But he's the guy I think is going to do really well the second half.
That's a really good move to trade Cortland Sutton because, like I said, even if Jerry Jeudy doesn't overtake Sutton, it's going to take passes away from him. So that's actually a really
okay. So here's been my strategy, but the people didn't bite. So I've been trying to trade Cortland Sutton for either J.K. Dobbins or Cam Akers because I don't need some of those receivers. And I was like, if I can get those guys as a running back for my dynasty league, I'll be fine. You know, I'll stash them away in my IR, but they have not given up on them.
I have J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers. Everyone's on my IR for our dynasty league.
Well, see, that's Tommy's strategy. I've realized Tommy likes to go after these players on IR, stash them. He doesn't mind finishing in the middle, and his hope is always that they'll come back towards the end of the season, and that's how he's going to win the league.
No, Tommy's playing for 2022, man.
Yeah, there are certain leagues that I'm saying, you know what, I'm ready for 2022 because I am all about tanking. All right, I followed the Philadelphia 76ers. I am all about the tanking.
Well, okay, Walter White. You guys are in the last place in Walter White.
Yeah, that's why I was telling Tommy, I'm trying to make some moves there and it's hard, that league. I feel like there's just not enough. This is a good thing for people out there managing leagues. You got to make sure there's enough bench space to where you can pick up things on the waiver wire. Actually, that league is decent in that regard. But yeah, I'm hoping, if you're, so in one of those leagues, I'm 0-5, I think, or 1-4. And you know what? It's not, don't feel like you're out. If you guys are in there, you can turn things around at 1-4. Yep. If you get to like 6 or 7 losses, that's when it starts getting tough. But you can turn things around at 1-4. So don't give up.
And more so, I think a lot of times is I am always looking to positioning. If you have 8 playoff spots or 6 playoff spots, how far are you to the last playoff spot? That's all I care about. I could care less about first place right now. Who do I need to beat to get up ahead? Because once I beat them, at any point in time, once you get near the end of the season, they may rest players, COVID, something, and that number 1 seed is out. And then now you have a clear path to winning the championship.
Yeah, that happened to me in our league last year. I was number 1 for most of the season. Then we hit the playoffs and I lost in, I think, the second round or something. So, you just got to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'll be very selfish, all right? I know a lot of times you're the top dog in our dynasty league. You have Derrick Henry. You have all those guys like that, and Dalvin Cook. I am hoping that those guys decide to take a rest those last couple of weeks, all right? That's what I'm hoping because right now I'm stuck at number 6, and hopefully I'll get number 6 or 7 and then go in and beat you at the number 1 seed.
Good luck.
And speaking of that, good luck. Last game before we wrap up, Bills 4-1 against Titans 3-2. Dawson Knox is an every down tight end. He is tight end 3 this year, and he has been so good this year. Stephon Diggs has been terrible. Derrick Henry is carrying the league. If you have him, he's really, really good. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown have been a disappointment. What are your thoughts on this particular game?
I think the Bills are going to win. They're going to crush them. But I think there's going to be a lot of points for Tennessee because they're going to try to catch up. So I think this could be a tricky game for Derrick Henry. We'll just have to see because that defense, I think, could stop him, and they're going to have to pass a lot. So I do expect them to be playing catch up, and so they're going to be having to throw a lot. But Dawson Knox, I think, is maybe the pickup of the year. He was on a lot of people's waiver wires I would say at week 3 and week 4. He was still on the waiver wire. So he's been a huge pickup. That offense in Buffalo, you definitely want a piece of that. Josh Allen is, like we've been saying, he's having an MVP year. He looks amazing.
Wouldn't you say there's always one player on the waiver that turns everything around? Last year it was James Robinson. This year, it looks like it's Dawson Knox. There's one player that appears that no one knows that will change your entire season around.
Well, Michael Williams was on waivers until week 2 or 3 as well. So
I think Mike Williams, Dawson Knox are some of those two players. Again, I still think Javonte Williams is still going to be that player out there down the road as well too. So the other person I've been paying attention to, Mick Nichols. He's the backup to Derrick Henry. And so if you read other reports coming out of Tennessee, they're saying they're using Derrick Henry way too much, and they've had to this first half. And so what I get from that is they're going to have to get Julio Jones, A.J. Brown involved, and they're going to give Henry some rest. So I can see a Mick Nichols, who's the backup, getting some play as we're headed towards like 14, 15, 16, the 4 weeks of next week.
That's a really good insight because as we talked about, Derrick Henry, I've owned him, as you guys know, for several years. And so he never has a strong September. He's always been a back half of the year kind of player where he gets better as the year goes on and they start to feed him the ball more. Yeah. This year, the script has been completely flipped. They have really he's had so many carries and he's produced so much, you just wonder what he's going to have left in the tank in the second half. So that's a really good insight. I might be picking up Mick Nichols on the waiver if I can get
it. Jay, remember, look at Le'Veon Bell. He was so good for Steelers for so long, but they just kept running. He says, I wanted 30 times. Look where that got him. And he signed that huge contract. The year after he sat out, he just was never the same again. But
the only thing I'll say though is Derrick Henry physically, he's just this unique guy. There's no one who's built like him. He's so big and he's bigger than a linebacker. He's really just so maybe he can take this. It kind of reminds me of Adrian Peterson. I don't know if you guys remember Adrian Peterson. They used to run him to the ground, but he just could keep going, so he might be like that.
Yeah. I actually thought he reminded me more of Todd Gurley back in his heyday. Big, strong, but fast until those knee issues derailed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah. So.
All right. Hey, we're done. But let me ask you a quick question. Let's go with basketball real fast. We have a keeper league. I'm back with my Japanese friends. So we actually have a draft this Saturday. And I'm going to be in Florida. So I got to do the draft at 8 o'clock. And it's a 1-minute draft. You get to keep 3 players. I have the number 1 draft pick. I was so surprised. I have the number 1 draft pick. Keeper league. Who do I pick?
Luka.
Yeah, Luka. No, wait, no. I bet someone's kept Luka. Someone's kept Luka, right?
No. Is it the first year?
Oh, this is the first time. This first time. Oh, yeah, Luka.
Luka.
Yeah. Luka for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so there's not Jokic, not Giannis, Luka.
No.
And especially when you...
Yeah, Tom, remember, these guys like basketball. They'll know more about basketball than football.
And if you just look at the age and also the longevity of that point guard position, if it's a keeper league, I think it is a no-brainer. It is definitely Luka.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hey, on a separate note, Jed, I took your advice. I did buy Bulls versus Mavericks tickets.
Yeah, I would see. It was a good deal, right? That was the best deal, and you get to watch the Mavericks, and it's a Wednesday night. I was trying to, that's a great game.
How much is it per game? How much is it per game?
That game you could get the 300 levels. You could get for $50 total with tax and everything.
That's pretty good.
300, but you're in the 300, so it just depends on if you're okay with that.
Yeah, and the medium seats are like $80.
Yeah, I actually think 300 levels. If you get the first row in the 300 sections, it's actually not bad at all.
Yeah, they have a deal too with a family pack where
Yeah.
for $25 plus tax, you get the 300 level ticket plus a hot dog and chips. I was like, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, they're gonna sit you up in the nosebleed section though, where you can't see. We're like in the last row. But if you have a group of like 20, it's actually not bad to sit up there because you can't get any other seats that are closer.
If you have a group over 15, the Bulls will give you an automatic discount. You can actually call in if you have over 15 and get an automatic discount, so you can get down.
All right, last thing. I know we have 2 minutes before Jed leaves. I'm not sure if you guys watch the baseball games. We're all Chicago fans. Thoughts on Chicago White Sox completely blowing up against the Houston Astros?
Hey, I'll just say this. The team I've been watching is the Chicago Sky, man. They almost won last night to take a 2-0 lead. They were down 1-1. I think the Chicago Sky might be the best team in Chicago right now.
I was surprised how bad the Chicago White Sox did, to be honest. Like, Houston's a decent team, but I still felt like the Sox had the pitching and the players to overcome them. But this is where young players can't usually handle the big stage, and that's why you need some good veteran players on these teams because the veteran players know how to win in the playoffs.
Yep,
I think the San Francisco Giants is going to win though.
No, I think the LA Dodgers. They're so
good.
I
think the Giants are going to end up winning.
You have Max Scherzer. Look at the stud lineup the Dodgers have. Oh my gosh, they're so good. Yeah. All right. It is. We're probably going to come back on. I think. Well, I got to talk with you guys because I'm back on travel on next week, so we got to talk a little bit about what that looks like. Hey, thank you for joining us. We'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.